The Nintendo Switch. An underpowered but very capable machine. Some people say it's past its prime and needs replacing. I say it can still offer something many other consoles can't, and in the right hands can hold its own. Especially when it comes to playing the Arcade Archive series at home and on the go. Here at Horizons Anew, we look at the absolute best that the gaming world has to offer, and today we are going to look at one of the latest releases on the Arcade Archive series, and one that is a perfect fit for the Switch. If you haven't subscribed to Horizons Anew, please do so now. Horizons Anew needs you to subscribe and tap the bell icon so you always know what's on the horizon. Let's delve into a classic. Let's get this out of the way. Burning Force is very similar to Space Harrier. Some may even call it a Space Harrier clone. I call it better than Space Harrier. Blasphemy, I know, and I'm sure Yu Suzuki is going to drive up in a Ferrari Testarossa and order a strike on me with a missile from an F-14 any moment now. But let's be real here. In Burning Force, I feel like you have more control over what's going on. Whereas in Space Harrier, you're just flying all over the place, hoping to hit something. In Burning Force, I feel like I can actually hit something with skill, rather than it being completely random and based on luck. Overall, it just feels more structured. My first exposure to Burning Force was the Mega Drive port, which was featured in my 3D on the Mega Drive video, which I'll link to in the description. This was a fantastic port, and is one of my favourite games on the Mega Drive, it has to be said, so I was very excited to get the chance to play the arcade original. Burning Force was released in the arcades in 1989, and takes place in a sprite-based, pseudo-3D scrolling environment, and you play as a girl named Hiromi, who is training to become a space pilot. Each stage represents a day in your training, and in each day you'll have to go through 4 areas. The first 2 areas involve you piloting a hover bike where you can move along the ground and destroy enemies. In the third area, you fly into a support ship and transform into a plane and gain the ability to move in all directions, which is absolutely badass. In the fourth area, you go through a bonus stage. When you've completed all the days of training, the final level is where you put all your training to the test in a real space battle. Although because I suck so bad, I still haven't completed my training yet and got to the end. For me, this game feels more precise than Space Harrier, and you have better movement and aiming, while at the same time your weapons are far more varied. You have a spread shot, which will be needed in the later stages, believe me, a laser weapon and a joint beam. You obtain these weapons by either picking them up from the ground or manoeuvring onto these jump platforms and catching them from towers or portals in the air. You also have homing rockets and multiple bombs as special weapons which help with the bigger and more difficult enemies. The 3D effect doesn't feel cumbersome when aiming and firing these weapons, and I always feel in full control and able to fire in prediction of enemy movement, so everything is reasonably fair and just generally more structured. Although predicting enemy projectiles' proximity to you can be difficult when there's lots of shots on screen. The game feels like a shmup in a 3D environment, and I had an absolute blast with it, even if the later levels are pretty hectic and brutal. The visuals are top notch with some excellent sprite work and explosions, and the enemies are well designed and varied throughout. This game was released on Namco's System 2 board, and so is much more advanced visually than the older Space Harrier. The scrolling floor is a little bland at times, but the enemies more than make up for this, and the far distant backdrops create a decent level of world building, and the whole visual art style of this game is bright and colourful and really pops up the screen, and I love the poster artwork. The music starts off great and gets less and less impactful as you go on. Level 1 has one of my all-time favourite tracks in video games, and the game never reaches this height again, unfortunately. Sound effects are epic and really engross you in the action. Burning Force is not only superior and more interesting than Space Harrier, but it controls better and is more satisfying to play. I think you will have an absolute blast with this one, so enjoy this new classic release from the Arcade Archives.